If only people could hear what goes on in the ears before we go. All right, I think we're live now. Hi. I think we had like one person waiting to say hi to us. I think probably more are coming in a little bit. But this is a live stream, and it's me, and it's Jim McCormick. Hi, Jim.
Hi, how are you? Hello, friends waiting in the room. Friend.
But
No, I'm doing. Yeah, it's football time.
even for people who are watching this in arrears, which I think the vast majority of people will be seeing it afterwards, this is basically meant to be a Q&A for fantasy football for running backs this year. It's brought to you by DraftKings. We'll talk about them in a little bit. We thank them for sponsoring. But in the meantime, Jim, I preloaded with a few questions to get us going while we started to get some folks coming into the room. And regardless, for all the folks watching after we have posted this as a video, our idea here is to turn it into kind of a referendum on the position. Running back is, as always, fairly controversial. Jim, we've been doing this an awfully long time, and we get a lot of, I don't want to say always young, but often young people coming in telling us that we're doing it wrong, and we need to be thinking about running back differently because don't you know, and then they have a fun buzzword of some thing that rhymes with hero or zero or Nero or something. And then we're expected to draft running backs differently. Do you find yourself in drafts so far in 2024 drafting running backs severely differently than in the past?
No, I'm not. But it is interesting because those events or those strategies do end up shaping kind of like maybe how you would want to react. For example, like we can talk about this as it goes, but like the dead zone has shifted back, meaning that I think you can actually wait longer for these RB2s that we used to pay for more, meaning the disdain that some people have shown or that has been shown for the mid-level art for the RB2, it actually has pushed them back. It's fun. It's like devalued to the point where I think it's too much. So yeah.
Yeah, and the whole notion of zero RB and hero RB, and I just want to draft. Am I allowed to just draft players?
Yeah, Rich Rebar, he was funny. He took two running backs in a row, and like the room fell apart. He was like, "Guys, they were the best players."
Right.
He took Bryce. He took Breece and Bijan back to back. I mean,
that's insane.
He was a super flex, so it made sense.
Okay,
but he took them in.
Okay.
But still, he just was. It was funny that this room guffawed, and he was like, "Guys, I took like my number 4 and 5 players, or whatever, his 3 and 5 players." So
this is why we like Rich. Yeah, I think my overarching, before we start getting into questions, my overarching idea and philosophy here is going to be: can we not have philosophical position philosophies? Are we allowed to just look at the actual players themselves and decide whether we think they're good, especially in the early rounds? Like I don't want to think about position in the first round. I want to think about which player do I want to have? The best player that's right there, the guy I ranked the highest. Can I just pick that guy? And then in the second round, not worry that I picked his position again and do it again. Like, I think that's all just fine. And it sounds crazy. And like Zoomers are watching this as if we have Zoomer viewers. Zoomers are watching this and going, yeah, but I watch TikTok, and the guy on TikTok says I'm crazy if I don't go receiver, receiver, receiver. And I guess I just sound really old.
Yeah, I mean, it's hip. and receivers, and also we see it too, though. You see it in the drafts, though, too. I think also maybe like for people who are watching football right now or coming up, they're seeing it reflected in how the NFL is treating the position too, and maybe they're overthinking it. But it still doesn't matter for how fantasy's played. It's still like the bedrock of fantasy, I think, to win. I mean, it's just funny, like you're chasing Kyron Williams again, but like, or you need those guys. They win your season. The legendary seasons, they drive the narrative of like how your season went with your friends, who had him or who had,
right.
And this year it's going to be who is going to be, Bijan or Breece, or in any case, yeah.
It doesn't mean we're saying only running backs. I have lots of wide receivers mixed into the first round. Of course. But yeah, they shouldn't be ignored. All right. So the first question that I wanted to get to, I don't know that I think celebrity producer Dave Piper will have, when he decides which questions, Dave, I'm just telling you right now, I sent you a list of questions. I don't really have them in front of me, so I'm going to need you to pick from them and put them into the into our particular chat, and that's how I'll know. And then if you're watching live, then we would love for you to fire off some questions into the chat, and Dave will pick them up and feed them to us as well. The very first question, the title of this video, Graham Pick said, offered up this question in the Film Don't Lie Facebook group: Bijan Robinson or Breece Hall at RB2?
I'm a Bijan guy.
Okay.
Personally,
all right.
I love Breece Hall. I think this is a better, I think the legendary outcome, if you're talking about what you're chasing there, I think it's better. Also, I just think the offense can be better overall. I know we're both going on. See, the thing is, we're both basing it on old Achilles guys, so I don't know when to pick each quarterback. It's literally 30s, late 30s or early 40s Achilles recoveries. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I think that offense is just going to sustain more. I think it's a better offense, and I'd rather invest in the better offense if that's my picking point, because I think you're going to you do better in a better offense with better pieces. And I think that's the truth at least that's my feeling of Atlanta.
Right. It's so dangerous to presuppose that we know what offenses are, because we're wrong about most of them from year to year. It's, for me, extremely close. I currently do have Bijan Robinson as the 2 and Breece Hall as the 3, and that's overall in regardless of position, regardless of format. I want McCaffrey, Robinson, Hall, and if somebody was going to pound the table and say I'd rather have Hall, I'm great with it. I think the argument for Hall is pretty clearly Tyler Algier. The argument for Hall is that, okay, there's second guys in every backfield. Every team uses another running back. The Jets are going to use another running back. Just because you don't know who it is yet doesn't mean that they're not going to. They are. And if I was making a bet on who has more touches this season between Breece Hall and Bijan, I probably might say Breece Hall. Maybe by just a little bit, because Tyler Algier is legitimately a good player and probably not going anywhere. And the Falcons thankfully don't seem to have a third guy they want to mix in like they did with Cordell or Patterson last year. But yeah, there's going to be 30% of the time Algier carries the ball, just like probably there's going to be 20% of the time that another Jets running back touches the ball. I wind up with Bijan just a little bit of maybe a slightly more physical, slightly less knee question, and maybe slightly more afraid of Aaron Rodgers than Kirk Cousins. And that's the only tiebreaker, but I don't think it's crazy to go the other way at all. I think they're both great, and I would take them in the top 3. Anthony Prestano says, are you opposed to starting 3 running backs in a full PPR? So this is basically saying, can I use a running back as my flex? What do you think, Jim?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, those are kind of, we talk about the cheat code with quarterbacks running. Well, the cheat code with running backs is like if you have a 3 down back or multiple of those, you want to get as many of them out there as you can. We've both been down on James Conner before, but for example, like if he's the full guy, if it's full go for him, those are games where there's 20 touches. I don't like Zamir White very much, but 20 touches. So if that's how you built, those aren't great examples, but there are PPR backs out there that thrive. Like Kamara, you would want him out there every week. So there's a very real chance that you could end up with him as your RB3 in a draft if you went RB heavy. Sure, play him. He's a receiver, so it's all context. But yes, I would have no problem doing that.
Me too. Yeah, it depends on the players. I want people to see these videos and come away thinking that regimented thinking about positions is a really simple way. It focuses you. It gives you guardrails. You get to listen to the pithy guy who's yelling at you in TikTok. In the end, this is about players. And so, of course, it depends on who the running back is. But I'm with you absolutely that I don't have any kind of paradigm need to have a receiver there. In fact, we just did a mock draft with Jeff Bell, a full PPR, and there's in that particular league there were 2 receivers and a flex, but there weren't 3 receivers. A lot of leagues have 3 receivers and a flex, and there are a lot of people who would tell you you're crazy if you don't emphasize receivers because you got 4 of them potentially in your starting lineup. And I go, okay, but if I like the running back better, that means I have 3 and 3 because I flexed the running back. So I'm just not going to change positional strategies for stuff like this. So I'm agreeing with you. All right. Kevin Coots asks the question, which running back on tape is the biggest Jekyll and Hyde? So the biggest feast or famine guy. I have an answer, so I'll start. You can
go for it.
Ponder. I think it's Rachaad White for me.
Okay.
And maybe the things that he's doing Dr. Jekyll at aren't the same things that he's doing Mr. Hyde at. I think that you can obviously at times on his tape see the great athlete, the explosive player, just a really, really good player in space and making guys miss and running over guys and being good. And then a lot of the time when it's a handoff and it's not immediately obvious, he kind of just falls into a defender. And I'm left kind of saying, wow, this is a starting running back in the league. Clearly box score wise, he was very safe last year. The workload was great, but there are certainly times on tape where I feel like I don't even know is the bad version of Rachaad White the Jekyll or the Hyde. Do you want him to be Hyde because then he's mean and he's running over guy? I don't know. Do you have a guy in mind for this?
Yeah, I suppose maybe because I was up close to it last year. But DeAndre Swift sometimes can be. There's times that he looks amazing, and when you see that drive, you're like, oh, they have to get him back in there. There's also times that he was reminiscent of Miles Sanders, where he would just leaves a lot of stuff on the field, misread stuff, bounce everything outside for a while, which would be annoying when you have everything blocked up inside. At the same time, I still have that's why I still kind of have some hesitation about him in Chicago, just because he's a volatile player. I think he's a power hitter who strikes out a lot, if you want to use a baseball analogy. And so that there's a Jekyll Hyde factor to him.
All right. I like it. I think I agree with that too. We're going to answer more questions as we get going. Let me thank DraftKings for sponsoring. They make these live streams with Jim and myself possible. We thank them very much. If you download the DraftKings app and use the code HarrisTube, all one word, you can make one $5 bet and get $150 in bonus bets instantly on things like the Olympics, which are wrapping up over the next few days. We've still got the basketball gold medal game coming for the U.S. after quite a scare today as we're recording this. Jim, did you watch that game?
I did. Yeah, that was incredible. I mean, DraftKings at one point had U.S. as 6-point dogs, which is incredible. So
wow.
There we go. Yeah, that's where we got to. 6-point dogs against Serbia. So
Olympics for sure. Of course, I mean, I would say maybe we do have NFL preseason games going on as we're speaking. Please, I would say don't bet on those. It's just not worth it. But futures, absolutely. Jim and I did a video last week about team totals, and I felt pretty good about a couple of those bets. I laid a couple of them myself because I was back in Massachusetts. I'm in California now. Not really allowed. But again, we thank DraftKings. If you download that DraftKings app, use the code HarrisTube, all one word. It helps us out. It lets them know that sponsoring the channel works well. If you're looking for a place to play the games, I do recommend DraftKings. Thanks again to them. All right. Diego says, are there any running backs that you feel are mismatched with the type of running system that we expect the team to run? That's kind of a detailed question that might be hard to just kind of pick out of your butt, but anything come to mind?
No, I mean, I suppose I'm interested in what you would think, or because you know more stuff about football in terms of these scheme things. It's a difficult one, but no, I mean, I suppose I don't know. Again, I still have questions about DeAndre Swift. There's another player I still consider. Miles Sanders is bad at football. No, I don't know about a player who's in the wrong system. No.
Yeah, no. It's tough. It's tough to like mentally just have to riffle through 32 teams, and it's not really a question we can answer on the fly. I would say, the teams that you can think of as being in the McVay tree, that running game. It's funny that all of the rest of them are still on outside zone, right? So someone like Jalen Wright goes to Miami, and you ask the question, is he the right fit for the one cut and go? And I guess we'll find out gradually. I didn't really feel like as a prospect before he had a landing spot that seemed exactly right for him. But by the same token, we wouldn't have thought it for Raheem Mostert either. Kind of a one trick pony, and he worked out great in it. So, and then it is the reason I say it's funny is because McVay then himself winds up being not running the outside zone at all anymore. a little bit, but he's running power. He's running duo.
He's got the graders now. Yeah.
Right. And so, and you wouldn't think of, I would think of Kyron Williams' body type as being the zone runner.
Right.
And instead, you've got little Kyron Williams running duo and power and 3 receivers on the field and mowing guys down and getting tons of room. I think maybe to some degree, if you've got a good offensive coordinator, I don't worry about that stuff as much anymore. And also you just don't have that world where 15 or 16 of the teams have one running back that they're looking to give 300 plus touches to, the way it used to be 15 years ago. And you'd be like, wow, are you sure with that guy?
Right.
Now you just have so many different guys in a rotation who can do different things, and you just sort of run the right plays for them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, you don't have these singular identities anymore. It made me think too. I guess that question made me think of like what players are entering new offenses. That's really where then I came to next. Like, does Josh Jacobs work in the floor system? Like, that's where then I would have to evaluate, because coming off last year, it's almost like I'm evaluating the player as opposed to the system as much. Like, it's kind of what I'm saying. Whereas the system,
Joe Mixon.
Exactly.
Joe
that's
Mixon
what I mean.
The
new stuff is where maybe I think of stuff. Where Singletary, it's like, well, you're still Devin Singletary. It doesn't really matter. So, yeah.
All right. Matthew Anderson says, do you still believe in a running back age cliff or a career carries cliff? And I think he says still, not meaning like we've been advocating for it, but that it's just been out there as a thing for a long time.
I don't think there's like this. I think this idea that they're chasing a number. I mean, what you're doing then is just using the last 10 years, your samples based or whatever, and then you're saying, I would say that decline, I would just, again, base it on the player, because we've seen players who were older who could still had good years, but it stops at some point, of course. But I wouldn't just write, for example, if Ekeler looked good last year, I wouldn't just say he's done, but I showed some age last year. But yeah, so I guess there is a cutoff. I don't think there's one arbitrary cutoff. The cutoff would be me seeing it as opposed to. So no, there's not a cutoff.
That's not a.
There's not a cutoff.
That's not a cutoff.
So wait, let me go back.
I think that's.
Not a cutoff.
I think that's the answer.
Seen. Yeah.
Right, because again, we're looking for easy rules. We're looking for, and you get them. People in this industry all the time are like
thresholds,
guys.
Right.
You know how you can avoid all problems? Just avoid drafting any running back over the age of 28, and then all your problems go away.
The curse of 325, right? Or the curse of 350, or whatever. Right. Yeah.
And so, my answer to that is if a rule seems real simple and like you can just win because you follow this one rule, it's probably not a very good rule, and it probably never was, to be honest. But yeah, I don't feel like it's mandatory. But of course. Is it a sliding scale? Do you need to be more worried? Should we be thinking about Derrick Henry this year with age 30 and the most carries since he's been in the NFL, along with Zeke? I think he those are the two. Yeah, it should be factored in, no question about it. I just wouldn't draw a specific line and say, okay, I'm out.
But like Mostert, for example, if you were just out on a certain age, you'd miss that season, but he didn't have the additional touches. So what are we talking? Like, there's different paths to this, right? So
right, agreed. Ox Brain Incident says Raheem Mostert, the aforementioned, finished as the RB2 last year. Now he goes in the 7th round and Devon Achane goes in the 2nd. Does that seem crazy to you?
I mean, the same exact thing just happened with like Jamal Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs basically last year, meaning like a new guy came. Dave Montgomery, but I'm saying in terms of ADP that like somebody was the number 2 running back in that offense. Not the best example. What I'm saying is
no.
Well, no. What I'm trying to say is that we had a season where somebody was the number 5 running back, whatever Jamal Williams was that year, and then in that same offense, there was another running back that completely replaced him immediately. I'm just saying.
Okay, but Jamal Williams wasn't on the team anymore. It's not really relevant. Let's get away from that one. Is it crazy that Raheem Mostert goes in the 7th and Devon Achane goes in the 2nd? Do you find that crazy?
Yes, the gap is crazy to me. I think that you should have more Mostert. I think it's fine to chase Achane because of this, you're just chasing something historic, I suppose. But I guess I would have them meet each other at some point. I'm not going to get Achane at his price probably, but I will be getting shares of Mostert. I just terribly chased this Detroit thing, so yeah. Go for it.
No, I think that's how I look at it too. I don't know if you're right, but that is how I look at it too. I would say I'm much more likely to be in the Mostert market where he doesn't have to start for me than in the HN market where he potentially has to be my RB1. Right. Like, I think people selling you Devon Achane as you gotta be bold to win leagues and he has to be your RB1. I feel like they're not factoring in the risk of injury and also just things going the way they went last year. The Mostert was awfully good last year. I definitely am drafting HN before I'm drafting Mostert, of course. But yeah, I have some real concerns about a running back as small as HN being leaned on as heavily as the Dolphins leaned on him right before he got hurt twice. You know,
I had been large. It was great. Those 4 weeks were awesome.
So yeah. So the answer is that I don't think it's not insane. Like it's
right.
If somebody takes HN with the 23rd overall pick or something, I don't say it's stupid. I just say you got to know that you're building a very high upside, scary downside team, and you might want to settle it down elsewhere on your roster with some guys you can fill in for the weeks that he's hurt.
Well, I guess beyond the babbling I had about Jamal Williams, with the idea that there's this huge touchdown regression coming, and the market can see that sometimes. And I think people are saying that about Mostert. They're saying
for Mostert,
there's no way he gets this share again. But there's I don't know. People, I get it. It was on a share, but it's not like it's that crazy to see him get another 230 touches again. Like if he's healthy, so it's all health.
That's the worry. Yeah, the worry is whether is Mostert just plain out the starter.
Sure.
And is HN kind of the satellite back? And they're both good, but touchdown. I mean, HN's touchdowns were too high too. The team just scored a lot of touchdowns.
Because ADP is expecting a flip, basically in their roles.
All right. Nick asks the question: do you think there's any chance Nick Chubb is an RB1 this year? And I'll start the answering by saying, any chance? You know, it was worded with a trapdoor where you could go, sure, there's a chance, but I mean, I'm not drafting him anything like that. I expect very strongly that he starts the year on PUP, and that right there means he's not going to be an RB1 probably if he starts on PUP, and then the odds of somebody coming back from that level of disgusting knee injury feels like I wouldn't be planning on it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it feels pretty low, this one. I get the idea, the mystery that we don't know anything about drafting him, but he's one of the injury guys who I have a legitimate concern with.
Yeah. Well, I took him in the very late round in the mock draft that we did with Jeff Bell on that we posted on Thursday. I'm happy to take a shot, but yeah, I'm not counting on RB1, obviously. Lord Belly Time. I have James Cook in Dynasty. I'm in a bit of a win now mode, and he definitely helps the running back depth, but should I be doing what I can to sell him high?
Lord Belly's Dynasty. That's cool. I wouldn't be trying to sell him. I don't think they did a ton to replace him. I think he had a good year. I don't know. I mean, that last year felt pretty optimal for that player in terms of how he was used, how he played, but it doesn't seem so unrepeatable. And there's not I don't think the offense is nearly as barren as people make it to seem, but it does seem it's going to concentrate a lot to him to continue. Ray Davis doesn't scare me so much. I wouldn't be running to move him. I'm not exactly sure what the question is in terms of, I don't think it's a sell high moment, I suppose, is what I'm trying to read into that. I don't think it is. But
yeah, it's Dynasty. And so if the thought is that I think James Cook is a little bit of a creature of circumstance and maybe not a great player, and therefore I'm worried that in 2 years he has no value at all. Whereas now he's viewed as an RB1. I could conceivably get a lot for him. I understand that, but if the allot is all future stuff, it's not really how I play Dynasty. I just don't think of 2027. And, we don't know anything about the NFL that's about to start in a month, let alone in 3 years. So I think I'm probably just hanging tough. I think I would just say, James Cook is kind of the definition of an RB2 with some pop weeks and probably some annoying weeks, and he won't get much goal line work. But I don't view it as I must get out from under this now kind of thing. Then again, it's hard to be absolute. I would need to know what you're being offered. If it's a really great offer and it's going to help you maybe this year also, then I might consider it. Because I don't think I wouldn't. I don't view it as a sure thing that James Cook is some undeniable force of nature, and in 2027 he's going to be RB11. I don't view that. Pete M says Austin Ekeler goes from being a top 5 pick to barely being a top 100 pick. Is he just terrible at football now, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, he's out of the top 100. That's a rule. ADP, it's just that's your quality of character. It's everything. I mean, people walk around. No, it means nothing really. Like in terms of like, it doesn't mean he's a bad player. It means what we talked about it on the film Zeros. I just feel there's decline. I think it's really, really tough. It's a narrow path. I think a narrower path than he had before. You've talked about it before. He wasn't always really suited to be this like bruising back. He's a smaller guy. Brian Robinson looked better last year for me. I just think there's a narrow path between a running quarterback, a rookie quarterback, all these things that I don't love for this player type. So I just think it stacks against him. It'd be hard for you. We talked about like, can you envision certain seasons for players? It's hard to envision a great RB. It's hard for me trusting him every week. I think it's hard for me to envision trusting the second back or maybe a split back in that offense. It's hard for me to envision.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you what you should envision. I can I can envision it maybe a little bit more than you can, in that we're only going to know when it happens. So like, I don't think you're wrong about where to draft him. But like, we're only going to know when we see it, whether so much of last year is going to be about, Ekeler had an amazing week 1. He hurt his ankle real bad, missed time, came back, supposedly was never himself. Now, I look at the film on Ekeler, and I still see plays where he made really good moves. So I'm not sure, before I know what happens this season, I'm not sure I buy that everything was injury related. Like, he'll be fine. He'll be back exactly to himself again. I don't know. I don't really think I buy that based on my observations, but my observations are wrong all the time. So it's possible that it was it was a higher percentage to do with his injury than anything else, and he'll get in any offense, and any offensive coordinator would love to throw him 7 screens a game and get him in space and let him go bananas. That's me saying that I maybe can picture the path slightly better than you can, but I kind of agree with you as far as the likelihood and, doing it sight unseen. I mean, he's the kind of player I'll take at the right price because he doesn't cost anything. Because like, what do I care if I'm spending the 8th round pick on him? It's fine. Right. I don't need to hit it. And I think he probably does have. Well, I think he has more upside than you do. In Washington.
He also Cliff Kingsbury would probably be impressed that he has a podcast. So.
All right, Jeremy Maguire, a keeper question. Would you prefer to keep? Ooh, this is great for you, Jim, because you just have scooped a little bit of crap on DeAndre Swift. Would you rather keep DeAndre Swift in the 8th round or Jaylen Warren in the 10th round?
That is tough. Because Swift has, I think, just a clearer path in his own offense. But does he really? There's other backs there. No, I'm going Warren. I'm going Warren just because it's later, and I think those players are close. So. They're both their share. I don't think Herbert and Roschon Johnson just disappear. So, yeah.
Everything's a share.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just the bottom line. If everybody could get in their mind that everything's a share, and we're never going back to LaDainian Tomlinson.
Then it's not descriptive. You're right. Yeah.
Everything's a share. I have Swift like in the 60s overall, and I have Jaylen Warren like the 80s.
Okay.
And that means they both probably come at a value. And maybe the tiebreaker is that Warren, comes a little later. And if you just kind of want to, if the feeling is Warren's a pretty good player, and if I could get things breaking right for me, I think he'd be great. Whereas I don't think Swift will be great if everything broke perfect for him. I just think he sort of has been what he's going to be, and he's a fine producer, but he's not great. And if you kind of just want to rid that from your team, then I'd say Warren gives you permission to rid that from your team. Boulderman says, or Boulderman, I know you don't like Zamir White on tape, but RB36, how can you rank him that low in that offense? I mean, RB36 is my rank, but if you have do you feel RB36 is too low for Zamir White?
No, I'm right around there, I bet.
All right, so
maybe be like 32 or 34. Yeah, I mean, it's also like that's when like how you can read a text and it can be like somebody texts you. It's like that offense. Like, what do you mean? Like that? Like you mean that offense is good, or that offense? How bad that offense is going to be? Because
probably the implication is probably that Antonio Pierce is he's on the meathead spectrum.
He is, and it was 20 touches, and he is the human graphic. He is the human Chiron of. They're 11-1 when the running back gets 26 touches.
Exactly.
So he's the human version of that. But we've heard that before. This has been the excuse a lot. The fact that Madison is next to him is fitting. because we've had that same exact experience with Madison before, where it's like there's no one else there. There's 260 touches coming, and then it just doesn't happen. And
Right.
I just think that's a real part of the bandwidth of outcomes for this guy. So that's why I'm not. I don't think RB2 is that bad. So I don't think 36 is a huge indictment. If you look the guys around him, I think it would make more sense. I don't know if you're. I think it's the workload that scares people. That makes people. That's the workload. It makes them think you're too low. The talent, right. Yeah.
It's the projected workload. People still kind of have their minds wrapped around, well, give me your projections for him. Tell me your projection, and then I can tell you what I rank him. And that's not what I do. I don't think that's what you do. And I think probably by ranking him 36, what we're saying is I probably don't think he lasts the full year. Right. But eventually the Raiders get enough of a look at him and go, yeah, we'll try other guys. And that's, probably you're right. It's hard for a guy who touches it 300 times in a 17-game season to finish RB 36. It would be hard.
Yeah.
Like Rashad White posted a RB1 season based on mostly volume. Like if you look at his per game fantasy value, he was like RB 13, 16. I can't remember. But if you look at it just overall, because he didn't miss any games and he kept getting that volume, he was RB6 or whatever it was. So like, yeah, I just kind of think that Zamir White's not good enough to keep the job. And you brought up the perfect example. Alexander Mattison got the exact same comments last year.
Yeah, I mean, Godspeed with Zamir White. I mean, it's probably not gonna. It's more than likely not gonna be in my flex, where I would probably flex a running back, but not Zamir White. So,
all right, let's do a couple of more, and then we'll wrap it up. This has been great. This is super fun for those watching live. We really appreciate you. Everybody else who's watching it as an uploaded video, appreciate you too. Thanks for being with us. Jaquan says, if we're doing keeper questions, do you like Chase Brown in the 10th? Or do you like Tajay Spears in the 15th?
Probably Chase Brown. I just think I know that the 10th and 15th is a gap. I just like Chase Brown more. I think his path to mattering is sooner. That's my guess. Again, we're all just guessing. I think that's right. The case. I think I think it's more scalable. I'm also more interested in that offense and being a part of a Joe Barrow offense. It's really the sell. Is really my point is being a part of a good offense than rather like what's really the rewards of being the guy, right. in a bad offense, I think it's defensible if you want to just take Brown because the 10th round to the 15th round, there's no difference. That's like, it is what it is, like they're double-digit rounds. You're going to get who you get, and it's not, these are essentially free players. Right.
So I'm not mad at somebody who would say Chase Brown. I would say in terms of pure value, maybe I would say maybe Spears. I have them ranked very close to each other.
Sure.
If you tell me it's a 5-round difference, then maybe Spears by a tiny little bit. But absolutely, you're right that it seems like right now, I feel like if you want to be attached to a Burrow offense as opposed to a Will Levis offense, that makes some sense. All right, last question, Joe DeMasso. Would you, and under any circumstance, draft Ty Chandler? Any circumstance in a Minnesota Vikings running back only league.
What did Ty Chandler do to me? Yeah, I would. I think Aaron Jones is there, and I love Aaron Jones, but he's a fragile man. Just like me. Yeah. I would be hurt by an NFL linebacker, so would he sometimes. So yes, I would. I think there's something there. There could be something there. I would draft him as a very late round. Let's see what happens guy, but. Yeah, I
haven't ranked in the double-digit rounds, but like 11th. And if I draft Aaron Jones, I would absolutely handcuff. I know handcuffing another thing that's like out of vogue and people don't want to know about anymore. But like sometimes, when the case of someone like Aaron Jones that I think I'm going to get some of because I think I'm a little higher on him than the market, I absolutely will back him up with on a double-digit bench spot with Ty Chandler. What did we see out of Chandler last year? I mean, could I be any faster? That's my Chandler joke. He's very fast, and he took over that Vikings job at the end of last season. They'd seen enough of Alexander Mattison, and I have visions with very bad quarterback play of Chandler getting the corner, getting the edge, and racing down the sidelines really fast. He's an interesting prospect who may never quite be up like a multi-tool threat, but if Aaron Jones gets hurt, I think he could do a pretty nice job. So I would, in fact, draft him. All right. That's going to do it. Thank you all very much for your questions. If you have others, you can ask them down in the comments, and we'll see if we can get in there and ask an answer. We can, if you didn't like our answers, if you think we're crazy, if you think zero RB is the way to go, then you can let us know that too. I'm not sure you'll change our mind, but feel free to try. And we'd love it if you'd subscribe to the channel as well. And we want to thank DraftKings for sponsoring us every week. Again, use that code HarrisTube, all one word, if you're signing up at DraftKings to play the Olympics or NFL futures or baseball or whatever else is coming up. We really do appreciate DraftKings for sponsoring. For celebrity producer David Piper, for Jim McCormick, my name is Chris. Really appreciate you watching.